Hello everybody, this is Nidhi from Canopas and you are listening to the Canopas podcast, the show that wants to make developers' life a little bit easier by providing directive guidance. Welcome to episode 6. In this episode, we will discuss how to get started as a web developer. Today we have Jimmy as our guest who has experience in mobile applications and web development on multiple platforms.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on the podcast. So as you have already described, I have been working on mobile applications and web development for a while now, about like 8 to 9 years. And in that, I mostly work on the mobile application as I started my career, and then later switched to web and backend development recently. So I'm not a pro as a web developer, but I can give a few tips on like what really helped me to get started as a web developer. So looking forward to having conversation with you.
Thanks for the introduction. May our audience have some insights about your development background. Let's start with the basic question. Who can become a web developer? Do you have any opinion on that?
I think anyone can become a web developer, but certainly a few things will help, like having background with computer related field in like school or college. That will definitely help, and especially someone who has good problem solving skill, that will also help. But apart from that, nothing is required. Absolutely anyone can become a web developer if they want to.
That's true. You mean willingness and eagerness to learn means everything. Anyone can adopt it and become a web developer.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who believes that I can be a web developer can actually be a web developer.
I totally agree. Why should someone choose their career as a web developer?
There are so many reasons actually that I can think of. The first one is you'll be working with ever developing digital industry. Web development is in the industry from the very early stage, and it's been there forever, and I think it's going to be there forever as well. And if not forever, it's going to be there for a long time. And currently it's just expanding and evolving. And as more and more mobiles and smartphone and other types of devices are getting popular, web is basically becoming available on every one of them. Like earlier there were like requirement of making native applications for mobile and stuff like that, but basically from like a few years, processing power on a smartphone has increased, and also websites are so much optimized that basically almost on around 80% of use case you don't require native applications, and that means the mobile websites are becoming the basic for almost every business. So join the ever expanding digital industry. That would be my first point on around explaining why someone should become a web developer. The second one is web development allows you to be as creative as you wish. There are so many things that you can do with web, like making website, do emails, and you can also create those incredible designs, and you can also do some like backend stuff like managing servers and just so many things that you can do. So you can do as much as you think, and that's a really good thing, right? It allows you to explore as you wish.
Yeah, probably. Nowadays we are seeing that compared to app development, web is exploring in very much rapid way. Ultimately, it has more variants, or we can say that if we take JS as an example, then new frameworks are constantly coming out on a short period of time.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it's basically like seeing a new JS framework every day. Whenever I wake up, I see a new framework, and that's how my day begins. So yeah, in summary, those two would be like main point for someone to become a web developer.
Yeah, but as we have discussed earlier, it's mandatory to focus on core instead of focusing on framework, because frameworks may vary day by day, but core remains constant.
I agree. Yeah, like think of framework as something that will help you for doing some task. Uh, Framework is not language. They should just help you with your use cases, and if something is actually making your life like harder, then that framework is not right for you, and maybe you can do some things with core languages.
Yeah, I agree on that. So we have discussed why should someone become a web developer. At the same time, it's equally important that how to know web development is the right choice for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. No matter how good web development is, if like you don't like it, then like that's a like waste of your life, right? So I would suggest a way to find if web development is right for you, and that's a very basic thing. Like as a child, how did you find out if you liked ice cream or not? By just trying it, right? Um, yeah, so it's the same with web development as well. Like there are numerous free online resources out there where you can wet your beak and like just try the web development and then see how it goes for you. Like if you like it, then stay with it, and if you don't, then just get ahead in your life and do something else. The best way to know if web development is right for you is by trying it. And a few hints, like if you enjoy being challenged, problem solving, coming up with creative solutions, you'll like it. And if you get frustrated easily and not comfortable with the unknown, you will not like it, because there are so many things in web development, and no matter how much you learn, there will always be a few new things for you to learn. So yeah, uh, that's it.
Yeah, basically unknowns are a part of developer's life, right?
Yeah, and as a web developer, you will have more unknowns.
That's true. What are the basic web technologies? Do you think that is helpful as a beginner web developer?
As a beginner, I think we should start with the basics, and that is with web, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or TypeScript. Those are the like very core things, and if you are a web developer, you should absolutely start with these things, and not with some framework that will basically like make you think this is web development. No, a framework is just an opinionated way to do things, but it's better to learn core before the framework and know what are all the opportunities out there and why I'm choosing this particular framework.
Yeah, that's true. It's like you can't reach at the step 5 without going through step 1, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
We have discussed basic needs to get started as a web developer. Uh, can you spread some lights on key responsibilities of a web developer?
If we start, then the first thing would be to like understand the clients and know what they want from their site. Most of the time, if someone is developing a website, there will be a few use cases that they'll be able to provide, like solving a problem for this user who will visit their website. Like for example, in case of food website, it will be like someone would be able to buy food from the website. So yeah, the first one is to understand what client want from the website, and once you know that, you can start working on like creating design frameworks, like this is what clients want and this is how it translates to a website. like there is a button here and this is the image and this is how a page should look like, that will satisfy the requirement of client. And once you have that design, basically you can start developing that with like real HTML, CSS and JavaScript thing, and add missing things like CTS and links, images, and you can also add multimedia features like sound, animation, video to make your website catchy, so that when someone visits it, they'll instantly like it and they'll feel connected to it. Another responsibility is to make sure that your site is responsive, that it renders on all devices properly. Nowadays, most of the users will be on mobile. So earlier, it was case that most of the users were on a desktop, and we just verified that if desktop works fine, then we are done. But that's not the case anymore. Like 70 to 80% of your traffic will come from mobile, and you should be prepared for that. Like you need to check with different mobile size and browser size to make sure that it renders properly. Another responsibility is testing. Once we are done with development, we need to test and see what can be improved. Like if something is not rendering very fast, you can like optimize a few things to make sure it renders fast on like very basic devices. And once you are done with like testing and basic improvements, you can push it on a server to make sure that your site becomes available to all the customers.
Very informative explanation. Ultimately, we can say that from preparing mockups to deploying sites on server is the journey of a web developer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Basically, like from idea to solution. That's the life of a web developer.
That's true. In some of the cases, I have seen that not a single person is responsible for implementation of all these steps we had discussed earlier. But the responsibility is basically divided among teams. So, are there any types of web developer?
Yeah, I would say basically kind of three types. The first one is front-end developer. Front-end is something that user can see. That website loads when you visit google.com. That's basically a front-end. Backend is what provides the data that is required for site to display. Like when you search something on Google, it basically the query goes to backend and it finds all the possible pages that will be like able to help you, and then it provides that response to the browser, and that's basically displayed to the user. So that's the backend development that will be responsible for like backend kind of things, that's something that user cannot see. Then the third one is full stack developer. That is basically the combination of front-end and back-end developer, someone who can do both the things at the same time, and someone who will be able to do all the things in website to make it production ready.
Thanks, Jimmy, for explaining different types of web developer. That's very useful. And also, thank you for being part of this podcast. Thanks for listening to the Canopas podcast. Make sure to check the show notes to discover our informative materials related to this podcast. If you have any questions or are interested in further discussions, please feel free to reach out at our Twitter handle @Canopas.